If Casual Friday is now casual every day, does what we wear at work even matter? Are we dressing for ourselves or for our clients? Hello, I'm your host, Susana Gibb, and today I'm joined by stylist Sharon Stone to talk about confidence, impression making, and styling some big name people like Sarah Jessica Parker, Aretha Franklin, and Ziggy Marley, and whether our clients, our other BNI members, are judging how we show up to a meeting can reflect on how we might show up for their referral. I hope you enjoy. And a quick word about our sponsor, Gibb Insurance Services. Referring an independent agent means your clients get choices. We shop multiple carriers, compare coverages, and move them when needed so they're always protected and always taken care of. And we always make you look like a rock star. Thank you so much for referring us. And now, on with the show.
All right. On this season of the Susana Gibb Show, we're talking about how we show up, the impressions that we make on people, how we feel about how we show up. And so clothing is such a big part of it. And I'm only a little bit self-conscious about what I picked today, which was out of necessity and rush. And I have a stylist on the show with me today. So I was immediately like, oh, and I hope I'm all put together. But this is the amazing Sharon Stone. She is with S2, the agency. Did I say it right? Style agency. Style agency. So tell us a little bit about how you got started being this style maven.
Well, I mean, it was definitely from my childhood. I've always been a fashion gal. I come from a family of fashion folks. My grandfather was in a had a women's ready-to-wear store with his brothers back in the 50s and the 60s and 70s. He was in downtown Dallas. And my father was in the textile industry in furniture. And my mom was just, she was a mom until later in life. She had a designer resale boutique for 20 years called Champagne Taste, the Rolls Royce of resale boutiques. And I've just always loved fashion, and it's just something that came naturally to me, and I was surrounded by it. And when it came time in college to choose a major, I was in TV production. So I also loved the theater. And I ended up gravitating towards the wardrobe set design side of the business. And it's just continued on throughout my life. And it's just kind of something that's like a language I speak naturally and I enjoy, and it gives me pleasure. And the fact that nowadays that there is an occupation that uses my skills is pretty amazing, because at one time it was like, good luck, you like fashion, maybe you're going to be in retail. But today the stylist is a thing, very much so.
Where did you go to college?
University of Texas in Austin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you go straight to New York from there?
Well, I did. I actually, after a year after college, I stayed in Austin trying to find a job, but wasn't that successful. I worked at a high-end jewelry store, and I came back to Dallas for a few months to kind of decide which direction I was going. And I went to visit my high school friend who lived in New York, worked for an advertising agency. And while I was there, the stylist who worked for her agency needed an assistant. And so, yeah, she got me the gig. And then one of her roommates decided she was moving out while I was there. So they had an empty room in their flat.
Where was the flat?
On 82nd and 1st, Upper East Side. Yeah. Okay. So I said, okay. And I went home, sold my car, gathered my belongings, and moved to New York and stayed for 15 years. I say I went for a week and stayed for 15 years.
So what year was this?
If you don't mind. 1986.
Okay. What was it like to live in New York in the 80s?
It was amazing. And right before I had gone to New York, I kind of had an experience that maybe pushed me a little. And that was when Andy Warhol came to Dallas. He had a book out, and the Warhol Diaries, and he did a meet and greet at the bookstore. So I went to meet him, and just kind of from meeting him and feeling that New York 80s feeling, I got a little excited. And then my second trip to New York actually was the second trip when I decided a friend of mine who was a model was going, and I went with her to visit the same friend. And I saw Andy again at Fiorucci on Valentine's Day, and that kind of sealed the deal. It was that time in New York where it was, Studio 54 and the factory, and it was a really amazing time. I was there from 1986 to 2001. I moved back to Dallas March of 2001, which is before 9/11. So I never experienced New York like that, which was interesting. But yeah, the 80s in New York. I moved right from the Upper East Side. I moved down to the East Village.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
fun.
I mean, there's a million stories in the Naked City.
I was actually just there last weekend, and so I was really excited knowing that you had spent this time in New York, because it's such a cool place. I mean, it's not the 80s New York for sure. It's very different. I think I talked to the New Yorkers I talked to that have since moved from there to Brooklyn. They're like, how does anybody live there? Because it's so, so, so expensive now. And not that it wasn't
Yeah.
then, but it's still the place to be.
Yeah, definitely. I lived in the city the whole time, which that's how people can date me, because now everyone does live in Brooklyn or the suburbs. But back in the day, if you knew someone who knew someone, I lived in an illegal sublet for years until I got evicted when the landlord found out, and then I had to couch surf for a few months to find another place. That's all part of the New York experience. You move. I lived in East Village, Chelsea, and Soho, and then Chelsea again in my time there. So it was,
fun.
yeah, it was amazing.
So I'm sure over the years when you were styling in New York, you have to have some good stories about some of the famous people that you styled. Can you share a couple of them?
Sure, absolutely. I started out in music. Well, I started out in advertising and then moved into music, working with a lot of musicians. And then I ended up with a lot of celebrities from working with other celebrities, and you do editorial and then they hear about you. And I would say, people always ask me who are some of your favorites? And definitely one of my all-time favorites is Sarah Jessica Parker, who I got to work with back at the height of Sex and the City.
Oh, wow.
Back when it was really a phenomenon. And she is so sweet and so wonderful. It was like an instant connection.
Was she like really little?
She's teeny.
Yeah. I mean,
And I had all the clothes all set up on racks, and she came in and she went through and she loved everything. It was just like having a girlfriend there. And she's like, call me SJ. And everything she said was, it's neato. Everything was neato.
well, no, were you styling for her personally or for a shoot?
For her. It was
Yeah.
for her for a magazine. And then she liked some of the this one line I had brought, rugby from Canada. I had some bags and she loved those, and actually called me after the shoot to shop for Matthew to do some personal shopping. And and then I ran into her once again in Barney's with Darren Star, and she told me I was one of her favorite stylists, but that and a quarter will get you a cup of coffee in New York City, because I didn't end up working with her again, but she was really lovely, very sweet. Um, Another great story that I worked with Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers. I did a music video, and we shot on Rockaway Beach. Although it didn't look like Rockaway Beach, because that's kind of Rockaway Beach is a very unglamorous beach on Long Island. But we shot on the beach, and it was he and his sisters and brothers were all in the band, and we had all kinds of animals, horses and goats, and it was all this kind of old Western. It was Everybody Wants to Be a Cowboy was the name of the song. So we were shooting on the beach, and we had all these animals, and we had a motor home, a trailer, where the talent would all get dressed. So I was out dressing people, and then I wanted to come in and do a style change or make a tweak. And I walked into the motor home, and it was so permeated with smoke, intense smoke, that I absolutely forgot what I came in for.
Oh, so it must have been weed smoke.
Yeah, it was Ziggy Marley. It was the Jamaican, the real deal. And I just got on there, and all of a sudden I just lost every thought I had in my head.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny.
That's a good excuse for a secondhand high.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, dude.
Oh yeah.
The,
Definitely. Definitely it was an experience. So
Did you enjoy doing the magazine shoots more than the album shoots, or was there?
I enjoy doing both. I mean, videos definitely were, could be a 18, 20-hour day, really intense, lots of work, but always a lot of fun. I worked on a lot of great videos. This one I did for CeCe and BB Winans, It was called Winans Phase 2. They're gospel, legends. And Samuel L. Jackson was a friend and guest on that shoot. I also had about 100 extras I had to dress in addition to the talent. But it's always fun, you get into the groove, the music's playing, and then we had 100 dancers, and it's really exciting. But by the end of the day, you are just beat. Yeah. And then as a New York stylist, at the end of the day, that's when they're all going out to the parties and you're meeting and greeting, and you have to do that because if you don't go, then the next person's there, and that's kind of part of the New York stylist cycle.
So when you left in 2001, what was the reasoning behind that?
Well, I decided in my 14th year, I was there 15, but my 14th year, I decided that while I loved it, I achieved incredible success. I was traveling around the world to all the fashion weeks, and I was an editor at Paper Magazine, and
Oh, wow.
I just really did well in a very competitive industry, but I just loved what I did. It wasn't like I was out knocking on the doors. It just kind of all happened. And I decided in my 14th year, actually, I had a moment. I was at Fashion Week, and somebody came up and was like, "Oh, hi," and they gave me the mwah, mwah. And all of a sudden I realized, I don't even like you. Like we're not even friends, and like you're not even a very nice person, and we're air kissing, and this is just not really very genuine. So it was a combination of that moment of clarity and missing my family. My mom was getting ready to retire, and I'd been away from the family for 15 years. And every time I'd come back to Dallas, Dallas, you'd have a big space and free refills on your iced tea and great Mexican food. And just it's so much easier and more relaxed. I was just on that wheel that I just couldn't get off. And I was having a great time, but I knew I couldn't do that forever. And I just kind of missed the genuine warmth and family and that kind of thing that for 15 years I was nonstop.
Yeah.
So
It's hard. I think until you go away from Texas, you don't realize how nice people are until you go somewhere else
and yeah,
and really appreciate it more.
absolutely.
These people are so very nice, genuinely nice.
Oh, yeah. I remember, one time in New York, I went to my neighborhood grocery store, and when I went to check out, I guess it was shift change, and I just wanted to check out, and the girl was just standing there giving me the attitude just because I wanted to buy some toilet paper or something. And I was just thinking, she was kind of giving me the, you're going to have to wait because it's shift change thing. And I just thought, you come to Dallas, if you're walking by the deli counter at the grocery store, they say, "Is there something you want to try, hun?" Or, everyone's hun and sweetie. Are you,
Yeah.
and in New York, it was such a beat down. Not, I had a lot of friends and then a lot of, faux friends, but Dallas definitely has that warmth that was missing. And I was missing that.
So when you came back here, were you personal styling yet, or how did?
I was towards the end of New York, along with my commercial styling. I picked up a few clients, and actually, I had one client for about the last 6.5 years, and she was, I don't want to say a socialite. She was a philanthropist. She was a mom. She was an activist. She lived in just, let's see, not south of Houston. She lived on the north side of Houston in a brownstone. She was really fabulous. And she was on the board of the Little Red Schoolhouse, which is a very prominent schoolhouse. And she was, so I became her stylist. And this woman was so fabulous. She would change her drapes and her linens like twice a year and have her walls repainted seasonally.
Wow.
She was amazing. Her son had this yoga studio that's like the yoga studio that Madonna studies at, kind of thing. Like they were real downtown, um, celebrities in their own right. And I worked with her regularly, weekly, dressing her for all her events. Um, yeah, she was an amazing woman. When I told her I was moving, she was devastated. She was so upset. I think she cried. And for the first year when I moved back, she would call me. I'd be driving down Central and she'd say, I'm going for lunch at the St. Regis with my mother-in-law, and remember that outfit? How did I tie that scarf? And I'm like, I'm like trying to remember. At some point, I did have to let her go, but yeah, she was like one of my main clients, and I had another couple like that were one-offs, but she was my regular kind of client, which was great. I mean, because working as freelance in the industry, you're always trying to get paid.
Yeah. Where's the next paycheck
Yeah.
coming from too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand from years of acting, you go and they're like, all right, you're going to be the young mom. I need you to bring these things. They're going to shop at Gap, Banana. What are your sizes and how to create this character, right? The thing that I have a kind of a hard time wrapping my head around is it's probably because I've not had it done. Although I'd like to, but having a personal stylist come in, because in my head, I'm like, well, are we still creating a character? What are we trying to achieve? I mean, I understand the philanthropist is like, I need to get dressed for this and buying for somebody, but do you approach it like a character, or how is there a shift in how you go from like a photo shoot to a personal? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It is a shift. And it shifts from like when you're working with a celebrity, you know all about them. And let's say, for example, I'll drop another little name, Aretha Franklin, who I did her album cover, A Rose is Just a Rose. And I knew that we were going in the middle of her video that Lauryn Hill was directing, and we were going to have like 15 minutes to stop. I was going to have to jump in and style her for her album cover. So ahead of time what the purpose is. I studied up on, what she was up to and what she was wearing and that kind of thing. So you know exactly what you're up against. But when you're working with individuals, especially the first time you meet them, I mean, I always talk to someone on the phone to get a feel for them, but everyone is coming from a totally different place. Um, and I mean, the circumstance is always different. And it's just more about a really individualized process, like getting to know the person and what their motivation is and why they call me, because I'm called for all kinds of reasons. Um, so it is totally different. With celebrities, it's, and the art director and everyone's giving you cues. Whereas in real life, it's about kind of getting to know that person on a more individual basis, which I love. It's much more human. It's more real.
Do you find that people dress to impress, or do they dress for how they want to feel? And this is the debate.
Yeah.
We talked.
Yeah.
I was still circling around. Are you dressing because you feel great in this outfit, or are you dressing that way because you can see other people's response, and
Yeah.
then that makes you feel great?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a little of both. And again, it just varies from person to person because, like, I've had a lot of people, with all the people moving into Dallas with new jobs and new companies, I get a lot of people who just transferred here. They're starting a new job. They have a seminar coming up next week. They're going to be speaking. Then there's going to be a cocktail party with that kind of thing. And which I love. Like, I have my assignment and I can figure it all out. So they are dressing because they're dressing for their job and what they do. And then I have some people, I'll have a gal call me and she, a year later, has lost her baby weight and hadn't done anything for herself shopping and just doesn't feel great and is ready to get back in the game. And, kind of going through editing the closet and kind of going through and starting her anew to feel good about herself, which I love. I mean, I get a lot of that, like people who are in a transitional period in their life, whether it's a divorce or a new job or, just moved to town or, whatever, or lost weight, just where circumstances change and they're ready for the transition. And I love kind of, taking them through that and bringing them these possibilities that they didn't. A lot of people don't like to shop. That's like 9 out of 10 people who come to me like hate shopping. And I'm like, well, that's perfect because I love shopping. I mean, like, and I do it all the time. So that's like, you know, giving out candy at the dentist. So, um, yeah, I mean, everyone, it's like I have so many different types of clients, that it's, there's not a one answer fits all. But I do find at the end of the day that no matter whether they're doing it for work, when people look good, then they feel good. And, that's what I love, that moment where they would have never thought of it, or they just hadn't realized how to do it. And then they just feel so good, and just kind of watching that transition. It's
So what
great.
kind of tips do you have for people if they are not feeling great about their closet, not feeling great about their clothes, feel like they need some new stuff, um, that maybe don't have a stylist at hand? What suggestions would you have for them?
Well, the first thing is to get the stylist. Yeah. I mean, when people call me, I feel like that's when they call me, it's because they know they need help. Um, but for people who are kind of out there, I mean, you can study online, you can watch TikTok or whatever, but I just don't even see how that really works at the end of the day. That's, I think, why it's great to have a stylist. Because even if it's just like a consultation, a closet edit, which is kind of the first.
I was gonna ask you,
Yeah.
like, how much do you shop in somebody's
Yeah.
own closet?
Well, and it varies, but I do that a lot. I have clients that I've styled for years, and sometimes I'm shopping for them, and other times I'm coming in and like, okay, here's all these events, and then I'll just shop in the closet that I've already shopped for. But for some people, it's about. I've had some people call me and say, I need my closet edited. I haven't done it. Sometimes it'll be years. And sometimes people have 5 or 6 closets full of stuff, and they, warn me, and I go in, and it's, I think, really important to edit your closet every once in a while at least, because if you don't edit out the stuff that's not working, then you can't see what does work or where you need new things. And that's kind of my approach when I come in, because I love to find things in somebody's closet already that maybe they just didn't know how to use it.
Mm.
Or, this is a really cool piece, or, let's go through this. Does this fit you? Does this still work for you? Um,
How much do you get rid of people that say, well, if I lose 5 pounds, I'll fit in it again? And they're and like so much stuff you keep because you think maybe
yeah.
I'll wear it again.
Yeah. Well, I espouse the 10-pound variable. I like clothing that will work 10 pounds up or down, or, thereabouts. I mean, I think that's a good rule of thumb, and that's kind of what I do for myself. But although my wardrobe is different than the average person, I will admit, because I'm prepared for anything. I mean, sometimes I come in and it's just things, from decades ago. Sometimes it's been decades, and it's just things that don't even fit, or things that aren't in style, and they know it. But nobody on their day off wants to jump in their closet and go through. I mean, that's like one of the last things you want to do. So that's why I'm able to, work with them going through, and I can do it really quick. Um, just trying to give tips along the way on how to elevate. And, I get a lot of people who are just picking up the phone and dialing Amazon. And, a lot of clothing comes from Amazon. And I'm not saying that everything that comes from Amazon is bad, but if somebody has a wardrobe that's 100% entirely from Amazon, it's just not going to be as interesting as I think a wardrobe could be.
Mm. Do you think, let's say somebody has a piece in their closet, it's not in style at all, but at one time it was an amazing piece. Do you hang on to that piece or do you let it go?
Well, it depends. Is it old enough to be vintage?
Well, I guess are you going to hang on to it in the case that it might be
Well,
vintage because it was this?
if it's a great piece, I mean, if it's a great piece, or if it was like a fabulous designer piece from another era, then there's a good chance, if it's beautifully made and great quality, or has a timeless element to it. But if it's something that's been hanging around and it wasn't great when the day it was born, then I'm going to recommend getting rid of it.
So some of the things, and I'm leading into brand and designer because I think about this. Having been, I would go on set, somebody would put me in clothes that were either like from Target, JCPenney, Gap, whatever. We're creating this persona. I'm not super brand specific. I'm I'm also not a bag person, even though I can appreciate a big bag. But I do know that some people are impressed by bags and they're impressed by brands and design. And there's kind of the salesperson thing. if you're trying to look successful, then you need to dress successful. And there have been times when, based on the person I was going into, I had a nice bag that I made sure to set on the table as I sat down because I'm trying to create this persona. But how do you feel about brands? Like, are brands important or is it important to the person?
Well, I think for me, the importance of a brand, and there's brands and then there's designers. And I think the importance is not so much the name, but I would say the quality. I definitely like to stress a quality. And I also like natural fabrics a lot. Although there are some times when, another fabric but can can be used in a very modern way, but I'm into a quality garment no matter what the price point is. I mean, you can find, some great fashion. Target will do these great collaborations, which I always love, and they're really fun, and it's the price point is great. But I'm into, something that has some individuality, which that's usually the difference between a designer and a brand per se. Is a designer is where there's a creative at the helm and it's created and there's thought that went into it and there's detail and intricacy, whereas a brand is more of a, mass volume kind of commercial piece per se, which, I mean, Lululemon, I mean, that's an amazing brand, and so many people love Lulu. I know I have to I have to make sure my clients get out of their workout clothes at some point in the day. Although I understand the concept, or people that say they're traveling and they're going to wear their Lululemon the whole time. I'm like, no, please don't tell me that. Um, I mean, maybe if you're on a trekking vacation or something, but I do a lot of vacation wardrobes for my clients, and I love getting people dressed up appropriately for the place they're going and making them look great when they're there. So they take their pictures and they're not in the same. But I think I've digressed from the initial question.
Well, no, we're still talking about brand and designer because, so I'm there in New York City, of course, and I'm thinking about Sex in the City because I'm watching Just Like That, which I just love to see what they're wearing. Yeah. So fun. It is so artistic. And we had seen this vintage store when we were driving somewhere and I was trying to find it. And I said, oh, because I'm there with my daughter. I was like, Leah, it's New York Vintage. So we go there and I can't remember what the name the street is on. We've been trekking around all day in our tourist garb and our tennis shoes. And we had gotten our tennis shoes wet. So we went to DSW and we're carrying our DSW bags and we get let in to New York Vintage. And the first thing we see is this beautiful Dolce & Gabbana blazer for $3,000. And then the people were like, hi. And we suddenly went, oh, I think this is not the vintage store that we thought that we were going in with our DSW bags, but they were at least gracious. And they knew we weren't supposed to be there, right? We were not dressed for shopping at this beautifully crafted vintage store. Everything in this store was amazing. Yeah. There's pictures of Carrie Bradshaw. Yeah. Not Carrie Bradshaw, but Sarah Jessica Parker in the different wardrobe that they had outfitted her in. And it was a beautiful store. And we enjoyed while we were in there and we flipped some price tags and went, okay, this is amazing. Back away quickly. But it made me think about your mom's store.
Yeah. So my mom had this designer resale boutique. She was like the second one in Dallas. It was back in 1982. And I think Clothes Horse Anonymous was the first one, then my mom's, and then Clothes Circuit, which Dallas is really rich in designer resale boutiques. And it was such a great concept. I mean, I was kind of raised on resale and Filene's Basement. I grew up in Boston, so we had Filene's Basement and Loehmann's and all those really great iconic discount retailers. So yeah, I've loved vintage, and I've always loved beautiful high-end clothing, like the kind you saw in the store, the $3,000 Dolce or the Prada or the Gucci, but definitely, as the name said, champagne taste. Not only would I not pay that price, it just wouldn't give me pleasure. So That's why I love designer resale. And here in Dallas, I always present that to my clients as a possibility because a lot of times at these resale shops, they'll have new with tags garments, for a fraction of the price. And especially Dallas is a lot more reasonable than New York, of course. And New York has all different levels of vintage, but there definitely are that some boutiques that are more like a museum with their fashion. It's very pricey. And I used to actually sell to some of those vendors, and they do the armory show, and it's all very exciting. But there's all different levels. I mean, the Buffalo exchanges and Crossroads. There's a great chain called Second Street USA. It's a Japanese like version of Buffalo Exchange, and they have them around Dallas and Frisco, and they have them all over the country. But there's a little bit of a Japanese flavor and their perspective, whether it's their vast streetwear section, but they also have some of the real unusual runway pieces, the high end, and a lot of Japanese designers, but mixed with, the Balenciaga and the Prada and the Gucci because the Japanese customer loves those designer labels. And they have them around here. And you can find great pieces at really amazing prices, which is one reason why one of the 101 reasons why I love to shop whenever I travel anywhere, because you get a feel for what the people in that area are shopping for, because things that we love here, you might go to New York and in their consignment store, they're practically giving it away because nobody in New York would touch it with a 10-foot pole, but it's something that's fabulous in Dallas. So you can really find great deals by shopping in other places that aren't interested in the same items that we like.
Interesting. Do you have any online places that you like? Because that's a huge new
Yeah.
category is the online
Oh, yeah,
resale.
definitely. I mean, Poshmark is a great
I
resource.
couldn't even believe when I got on Poshmark. We tried to list one of my daughter's dresses. She talked me into buying this pricey dress because she was like, "Mom, we'll sell it on Poshmark."
Uh-huh.
So we listed on Poshmark, but it's a whole ginormous community like Facebook or Instagram of
Oh,
people
yeah.
communicating and talking. I got more followers on Poshmark in one day than I've had on Instagram forever.
It's a phenomenon for sure. Poshmark is really big. I mean, there's Mercari, which is less. Then there's the Real Real, which is kind of the real high-end um, luxury designer version. There's a few others, Grailed and Vestiaire, which are also real high-end and kind of fabulous. But another great online resource are these Facebook neighborhood groups.
Oh, the face
Like,
marketplace.
no, it's not marketplace. These are private groups, like in Dallas, like Park City's online yard sale or park, and you have to be invited into the groups. I mean, they have thousands of women in them, but these are, in the areas where these women have all this fabulous fashion and they're posting it. Of course, you have to be really quick because people are following these, and it's furniture, it's clothing, but really, I mean, high-end designer things that people will post at really great prices because they're just kind of doing it casually, and it's a whole community.
See, the only thing I know about those groups, aside from Facebook Marketplace, is the buy nothings.
Uh-huh.
But the group that I'm in is mostly like young moms, so they're giving away things that I'm like diaper bags and
Yeah.
stuff that I am.
But if you look at
It's
your neighborhood yard sale, you'll find a group or two. And yeah, it's always a lot of fun. So I buy and sell on there. But yeah,
Have you ever thought of doing your own line, or do you like other people, like the artistry of other people's stuff and
yeah,
curating?
I never thought about doing my own line because I'm leaving that to the people who are best at that. I'm more of a art director or like a creative visualizer. But as far as, I construction, I don't sew except for maybe some buttons or a seam or something like that. Um, so I've never really wanted to do my own line, but I have a lot of friends who are designers, successful designers, and I totally appreciate the process and I love working with them. I've always, enlisted them for special clients and special projects. And when I got married, I have a designer friend in New York, and I got married here. And I had a few vintage gowns. They were like 60s vintage Neiman's. And so I sent him photos of the gowns and he put together some illustrations, gave me 3 different illustrations of ideas, and we took the 3 different gowns and deconstructed them and then reconstructed it. And he gave me these, fashion illustrations that he sent to me, which were beautiful of themselves. And then I had a tailor here in town who had worked for Neiman's and Korshak for years, like 40 years. And we would FaceTime with the designer, and he would walk her through how to put together the gown. And I mean, just the artistry involved in that. I mean, he works with everyone from J Lo to Blondie to everyone. Um, so to have him put together my wedding gown, that was pretty exciting. But yeah, I mean, that's like next level, and that's the level I appreciate. So I'm not gonna step on anyone's toes in the design industry anytime soon.
So if somebody came to you and said, Sharon, I am in sales, kind of business casual, business professional, and I need 1 to 2 pieces to kind of stay on trend, elevate my look that are going to be kind of showstopper pieces, what would you suggest?
Well, first of all, I'd suggest more than 1 to 2 pieces. I like to give options, and what I would like to do in that situation, instead of 1 to 2, maybe do a little capsule of 5 to 6, where we can mix it all up and then have multiple options. But as far as what I would recommend, business casual, I mean, and it's different for women than for men. You have to break it down into that because women have a lot more room for creativity. And I also feel like business casual doesn't have to mean dull or cookie cutter. I like to bring out the individualism of each person because even if they are in that office, working in the office environment, I still feel like they can bring their individuality even in a business casual situation. I mean, that's
Style people in jeans for business casual?
for that casual Friday.
Yeah.
Actually, for years, I worked with a large company here in Dallas. The CEO brought me in, and I worked with the CEO and the CFO and the COO and all the upper management. And for the top execs, I would do their wardrobes a couple times a year because they got it as a bonus.
Hey, that's a nice perk.
Oh yeah, that was great. And then I would come in and I would do talks for the rest of the group, like in the company, talk about appropriate dressing in the workplace, which was also a way that they could kind of give people advice without teetering on that fine line of telling people how to dress. And I also did the company shirts and that kind of thing, and that was a lot of fun. But definitely, I was dressing people in the business casual, and the people in these business workplaces, on their own time, a lot of people, they love fashion but then they show up to work. But I tried to give them little tips on how to take that little bit of fashion that they love, bring it to the workplace in an appropriate way, but, still reflecting their individuality when they go into work. Because I mean, we all spend so much time at our work day in and day out. So I feel like fashion is really a great way to bring that with you.
Yeah. Well, if people want to find you, how do they find you?
Well, I have a website, www.s2, it's the number 2, thestyleagency.com. And I also have, it's the same on my Instagram. Although my Instagram is not as much my straight up fashion, it's more kind of lifestyle, a lot of art, some cute puppies thrown in there, a lot of travel and that kind of thing, things that inspire me. Because I was thinking recently, when I was in New York and working with all these celebrities, they're thrilled to have you post and advertise that you've worked with them and tell everyone. But here in Dallas, when I'm working with individuals, there's a privacy. And a lot of my clients, while there's a few when I dress them for a special, like public event, and I'll ask if I can use photos, but people here definitely want more privacy. So a lot of my amazing clients, remain private, and I absolutely respect that, but I don't have all the photos to splash out. Only I get to see them looking all fabulous, and then I send them off. But yeah, s2thestyleagency.com. It's a mouthful, but
I did love on your website because I grew up watching Sharon Stone, the actress, and how you're like, yes, my name is Sharon Stone. Let's just get it out of the way from the beginning. I am not her.
yeah, as my mom used to say, my name got famous before I did. But yeah, it's been interesting, and people remember me. I have to be on my best behavior because definitely Sharon Stone is, it's been a little funny joke in my life, but it's also worked really well with my business. So,
Have you ever come in any kind of circle with her?
well, I didn't work with her directly, but I was borrowing some clothing for a shoot from, I believe it was Malo Cashmere, and they showed me this one sweater, and it was this beautiful sweater, this pinky, corally, soft cashmere sweater. And they said, we designed this one for Sharon Stone. She said she wanted a sweater the color of the inside of a conch shell. And it was that like pinky orange, which I thought was interesting. And also I'll tell you one more story. I was going to this party, and it was actually when Madonna did her sex book, and they had it at Industria Studios, which was like a super studio, photography studio. And I was on the list as an editor from Paper Magazine. And I was going with a friend of mine who was incidentally named Susan Anton. And we got to the front, and she checked in and I checked in, and they said, oh, wait a minute, you're not Sharon Stone. I said, well, no, I'm not Sharon Stone, the actress. I'm Sharon Stone, the stylist, and I'm here. And they immediately got alarmed, thought I was trying to impersonate Sharon Stone or something. So I said, well, that's okay. I'll just go in as her plus one, not to worry. And as I went in, actually, the security guard got a little aggressive with me and escorted me out because he didn't realize what was going on. And later on, I was written up in Page 6 by Michael Musto that Sharon Stone, not the actress, but the stylist who came to the party and was summarily escorted out.
Oh my
to a-
gosh.
Yeah. So that was my Page 6 mention when, accused of impersonating Sharon Stone.
I know. You talked about Sharon Stone having that sweater. So how many of the clothes that we see on celebrities are actually theirs? Like they're all loaned to them, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like they don't have this amazing closet full of clothes. It's not even their clothes.
They don't. Although recently I just heard about Sarah Jessica, because there's so much in the news about her again, that every film, every production that she's in, she has it in her contract that she gets to keep all the wardrobe. And she has this amazing archive, which I think she's donating to FIT or Parsons or whatever at some point. But she keeps all her clothes. That's like the rider on her contract, that she gets to keep everything. But everyone else, it's like on loan, and because every designer wants to have their clothing on this person's back. So that's the beauty of working with celebrities. You can walk into Dolce & Gabbana and you're working with Sarah Jessica, and they say, take what you want. And it's that kind of world.
Well, Sharon, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thanks for reaching out to me. It's a pleasure.
And that's a wrap on today's conversation with stylist Sharon Stone. I love what she said about it's about feeling good in what you wear, and that quality clothes really do make a difference. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, subscribe, and share the Susana Gibb Show with a friend or colleague. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you next time. Studio space provided by Icarus Productions. Producer Guy Reese edited this episode. Thank you to Katie Townend and Shelby Furr for their constant support.